we're all born with like different gifts, but the thing is, because they're so natural to us, like we don't always realize that they're gifts. And also a lot of gifts are underdeveloped. So like when you start to take a gift and develop it, then it becomes a talent.
This is the Pursuit of Wellness podcast, and I'm your host, Mari Llewellyn. What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Nikki Novo. This is who did my soul reading back in January and kind of changed my life. I didn't consider myself someone very spiritual beforehand, but I was going through such a hard time with fertility. I wanted to talk to someone, and the conversation was everything I needed and more. It helped me realize that I was on the right path and doing the right things for myself. And it also gave me a new feeling of excitement and motivation. I've had a few of my friends since chat with Nikki, and they also had such a life-changing experience. So today she came on the show to help you guys be inspired and feel like you're on the right path. We talked about so many different things. We get really spiritual and talk about how to find your life purpose, tapping into your own intuition, and how to fully align with your higher self. She talks more about spirit babies and what that means, and some thoughts behind miscarriages, as well as breaking down how ancestry enters the equation and what it's like to break away from your lineage, kind of to be the one to change the pattern in your family. Lastly, we talk about how to know when you've found a soulmate and various different types of relationships you can have. I know you guys are going to absolutely love this episode. So without further ado, let's jump in. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. Love you. Nikki, welcome to the show.
So excited to be here.
So guys, I've actually brought Nikki up on this show a few times. She is the first person to ever give me a soul reading. And most of the audience knows I'm definitely someone who's a little bit like of a control freak. I tend to be more like science-based. And I was truthfully a little skeptical about soul reading and psychics and, being spiritual. And I think that was kind of a missing piece in my life for a while. And it wasn't until, I'm just going to dive right in, wasn't until I hit a really low point with my fertility journey that I reached out to you. And you'd come highly recommended from Courtney Swan and Celeste, amazing people. And it was a very, I don't know if I've told you this, but a very life-changing conversation for me, because I was holding on so tightly to this idea that I was the reason that it wasn't happening, and I was in full control of having a baby and conceiving. So you really allowed me to let go of that timing and just kind of trust that it would happen when it's meant to happen. So I just wanted to say, like, it really changed. Yeah, it changed my
spirit baby's coming in hot.
My spirit baby is coming. She's here.
Yeah, she's just like very proud of what you have come to understand, because that's really what spirit babies do. They come, for those of you guys who are listening, spirit babies is a term for a soul that is hanging around you, even though they haven't come through you yet. They're your future babies, but often our babies are soulmates of ours. We've like lived other lifetimes with them, all that kind of stuff. So they will often come as guides. Some people have easy pregnancies and they're ready and, whatever, good to go. But some souls want their parents to kind of change some things up before they come, almost like prepare them to come. And there are sometimes these like little lessons. And it's not that it's your fault, and it's not that you have to get something right. Mm-hmm. It's more that you have to surrender to what's being asked of you, because often the baby is like, I'm not coming with like that shit that you have going on, that bullshit you have going on with your whatever, or your schedule doesn't fit for like me coming in, all that stuff. So they will prepare us. And you can hear a spirit baby. I actually, my first son came to me about 10 years before he was even born. So they can come even before you're in relationship, or, before you're even with a partner, or, at the age of, so if you feel one, don't freak out, because some people are like, I am not ready, and I can feel the soul. But yeah, it just sounds like your baby's just proud of you. So
I've had such a lesson in it already. Like my mental state now versus a few months ago is so different. I think letting go of control has been my biggest learning lesson with fertility, with skin, with work, like everything. I have such an obsessive personality, and I think it was really holding me back from kind of going with life and living my life and enjoying. So I've already taken so much away from this experience.
Yeah, and if you think about it, so much of your purpose has to do with being a mother. So this child is like wanting you to be a certain kind of mother, and like releasing that kind of control is going to serve her. Like she's going to enjoy that mother more than if you would have had a baby a year ago.
Yes, agreed. And you and I spoke a lot about my purpose, and I want to definitely dive into that. But I'd love to start with you and how you tapped into this, this talent that you have, this skill that you have of serving others and really helping. How did you find your true purpose?
Yeah, I mean, this was very accidental, like a super accidental career. I was a fashion and beauty editor. So my last full-time job was at Refinery 29, if anybody knows that. But I worked at Condé Nast and NBC. And actually before that, I lived in LA, and I was in the publicity department at Fox Searchlight and Lionsgate. So I had a very different career, had no interest in doing this work. But there came to a point that I was, it really all started with a boy. Like I was dating this guy, and I had always been a person that followed my heart. Like I never really needed people to tell me what to do. I actually was like very against authority. I always just like followed where my heart was taking me. So I followed my heart to this guy, and I really thought that this was my person. I was in my mid-20s. And out of nowhere, after about a year and a half of dating, he breaks up with me. And that was very traumatizing for me. Not because, because I really loved him and I wanted to be with him. But the most traumatizing thing for me was that I had lost trust in myself, because I really felt like God or whatever had brought me there. And, I was raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school my whole life. And even like a few weeks before I met that boyfriend, my mom had taken me to church. And I remember just like praying, being like, dear God, please send me a boyfriend. And then I was like, I am ready. Aww. And then like 2 weeks later, I meet this person, and we were connected. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever met somebody that you're like, that they seem familiar to you. And that's really a sign of a soulmate. It's somebody that you're like, oh, like I know this person for some reason. I feel like I know this person longer than I've actually physically known them. And that can be, I was going to say the two of you guys, I was definitely going to say that. Like it could be best friends. It could be your boss. It could be your partner, your mom, all sorts of people. And that was definitely the situation with him. But I didn't understand. I thought that like if you met a soulmate, you're supposed to be with them for the rest of your life. And I didn't know that like soulmates actually come to support your spiritual growth. And sure enough, this person was the person that brought, like after breaking up with him, or him breaking up with me, I went to my first psychic, and I was raised Catholic. So that was like a big no-no. I was very scared to go. And I went to like this first psychic I went to that my girlfriend brought me to. I had this one friend that went to school with me as well, but she was like the kind of friend that like, if you need like a drug or a prostitute or like a private investigator, like this is the friend that you call,
Yeah. We all had one.
Yeah, we all have. I was like, even though like she grew up like me, went to Catholic school, I was like, you're the one that like, well, you have these numbers. And she's like, of course I have this number. So she brings me to the psychic, and it was like the worst experience ever. It was, I like walk into this lady's home, and it was super sketch. And the first thing she told me, she's like, you have a broken heart. I was like, oh my God, yes, you know me. And she's like, you're never going to be happy unless you're with this person. And I'm like, I knew it. Like, and I start crying. It was so dramatic. I left the experience, and I was like, this is why my mom told me not to go to psychics, because it was like really confusing.
Yeah.
But then funny enough, like a few days later, I was out to dinner with my friends, and somebody like dropped a angel reading card next to us. And we just kind of took it as a sign. So one of my girlfriends went first, and she like was, okay, this lady's legit. Like we can go to her. So I went, and this lady changed my life. Like she said the complete opposite. She was like, that's not true. It's funny. The first woman told me that I was never going to be happy again unless I was with this guy, and that she could reverse what happened with like a spell that was going to cost me like $500.
Of course. Yep. Buy one, get one.
Yes.
Vibes.
Like a TikTok witch.
Yep.
This is like, So anyways, I meet this other woman. She does angel readings. And, she predicted a lot of my current life. And one of the things she told me, she was like, you're going to get into the metaphysics. And I was like, what? I was like, I came here for you to tell me that I was going to marry a doctor and like have 2 kids. And now you're telling me like I'm going to be a wizard, because I didn't know what metaphysics meant, but I was like, that sounds kind of weird. And she was correct. Like I just got really interested. I started reading books on like angels and all this stuff. So I'd work all day at my like fashion and beauty job, go to the events that I needed to go to, and then I would study at night. And I just started having these like little awakenings, and I just got really into it. I knew that I couldn't like come out with what was happening until I found myself a boyfriend, or a husband, really. I was like, okay, like you got to keep this on the DL until you meet a husband. So I meet my husband, we start dating. We're dating. I'm still interested in this stuff, but he doesn't really know. I'm still the fashion and beauty editor. And on our honeymoon, I was like, I don't think I want to go back to work. I think I just want to like pursue spirituality full time. And he was like, what? So I did like a bait and switch on the guy. I told him, and he was cool with it because he was growing his business and he needed help. So we basically decided that I would leave my work. I would help him with his business. I would grow his business. And then I could like do my work on the side. And just like, I didn't know what I was going to do at first. I was just blogging at the time and writing like self-help. But people started coming to me and asking me questions. And then accidentally, like when I would kind of do like a coaching session, which is what I thought I was doing, I would accidentally like start to receive messages. And I was like, this is a problem. Like I need to figure out like what's happening. So I got a little bit of training. I started to like sit in meditation, and then basically learned how to do like a full reading. And I called it the soul reading because it's just a combination of the things that I would want from a reading. So right now what I do is I can do a ton of predictions, all that stuff, but that's not really like what I'm in it for. I'm in it more for making space and time for people to connect with their soul, to kind of remember that we are not just a mind and a body, but we are actually souls. We're spiritual beings living here. And having that perspective makes, everything else makes sense, because sometimes we get like stuck in the details, and controlling is like kind of like being stuck very much on the ground in the details. So it's nice to have a spiritual understanding, and that's really what I do. And I never looked back. So I've been doing it now for over 10 years.
Something I'm super focused on right now is getting enough protein in my diet, whether it's for weight management, better metabolism, hormone regulation, or bone health. The benefits of a high protein diet are abundant. Most of us are not getting in enough protein. I know it's really hard to find snacks that have enough, and that's where Chomps come in. I absolutely love Chomps meat sticks. I feel like they're really taking off right now. Everyone I know is eating them, and they have so many benefits: 0 sugar, up to 12 grams of protein, and low carb. They have amazing different flavors, and they come in 3 types of meat: grass-fed, grass-finished beef, venison, and antibiotic-free turkey. There are 10 delicious flavors, so there's an option for everyone, and it can satisfy your whole family's taste buds. With natural ingredients you can feel good about, they're filled with the highest quality, sustainably sourced meat without any fillers, so you can feel good about what you're snacking on. I love to just throw one in my bag, bring it to the office, bring it to horseback riding. I know we supply them at the Bloom office, and the girls absolutely love them, so you guys need to check them out. Right now, Chomps is offering our listeners 20% off your first order and free shipping when you go to chomps.com/pow. Go to chomps.com/pow to see all the delicious flavors and get 20% off your first order and free shipping. That is chomps.com/pow. Don't forget to use our link so they know we sent you. I have had so many ups and downs in my skin journey. It's taken me a very long time to find a skincare brand I trust. And that's where ClearStem comes in. It is the first skincare line that combines all 3 categories: anti-acne, anti-aging, and clean, meaning free of hormone disruptors and pore clogging fillers. I feel like I can really trust this brand. I absolutely love the gentle cleanser. I love the lip balm. I love the body lotion. I use the hair care. It is like one of the only brands I truly trust to not break me out. Plus, I know that Danielle and Kaylee, the founders, have had acne themselves, so they really understand what ingredients need to be in there and what shouldn't be. Plus, they have an acne lab test on the website that helps thousands of people get to the root cause of their acne through comprehensive lab testing and lifestyle-based recommendations, which I think is such a key to solving any skin problem. Visit clearstemskincare.com and use code POW at checkout for 20% off your first purchase. Again, that's code POW, P-O-W, for 20% off your first purchase at clearstemskincare.com. I think the biggest takeaway that I had from our conversation, for anyone listening who like maybe doesn't understand a soul reading, it made me feel more aligned with my purpose in life. And it wasn't necessarily that you told me anything that was shocking to me. It was all like, yeah, like she knows me. She knows my history. We tapped into my ancestry, my future, so much about motherhood and writing a book one day, which I've always wanted to do. And it just made me feel like I'm on the right path. Like I can let go a little bit. And it was really comforting to me and also kind of lit a fire under me. It did all the things that I needed, honestly. And I think for anyone listening who's maybe feeling stuck or needs just like a little bit more of a light of where they need to go, it was incredibly helpful for me. And I know Fee has done one with you and a lot of my friends have. And I think it's just very insightful. Do you find that a lot of people come to you when they're at their lowest?
Yeah, or transitions, like people that are like leaving one path and moving to another. It's funny, I don't really like go out seeking clients. Like people always come to me. Actually, Mari, funny enough, I remember not knowing your work, but like seeing your face somehow in my Instagram, I guess. And we have friends in common, so that's probably why. And I remember just being like, oh, like I will connect with her one day. Like we are, because I think I always say like people's souls bring themselves to me. And it's just, you come at a time where you're like ready to live into your purpose, like you said. So I think because a lot of the times we think that we have these desires and they can be like things like, I want a nice house or I want children. And we get caught up in thinking that, oh, that's silly of me wanting that. Or like, what does that really mean? But a lot of those things are part of like why we are here.
Yeah.
And I think when you can connect to sometimes the smallest things have so much to do with your purpose. And when you make that connection, you're just free of like self-judgment, of self-criticism, of controlling. Like, you know that there is something bigger that is guiding you that way. Even if it's like, again, I want to have a boyfriend or these things that seem very simple, they are part of like why we're here. And when you make that connection, you just become more powerful. Like you almost like gain your power back in a sense.
Yeah, it feels like a burst of self-confidence in a way. I know you said you felt like you had a message from my audience specifically. And, after I posted that you were coming on, I kind of had a lot of messages. And I think the girls listening are very aligned on what they want for themselves and like a higher future self. What would you say that message was for you?
Yeah, so as soon as I was flying over here, I was like, oh my gosh, like this crowd is so chatty. Like there's so much to be said. So on my podcast, I do regular messaging, but I got 3 for your community. So I'd love to share that with you. So, all right, guys, get ready. So when I share messages, it's important to know that what I'm really trying to do is to kind of create a space for you to hear your own intuition. Because even with Mari, right, like we're going back and forth, but a lot of it, like you're getting messages at the same time as I'm talking, more than like what I'm saying. So that's really what I want you to tap into. There's 3 messages, so all of them might not be for you, but there's going to be certain things that stand out, and that is your intuition talking to you. So if like a sentence stands out or you get goosebumps when I say something, like that is for you. So the first one I was getting was that Mari, you really have a group that is all about, they have like bigger messages, bigger truths. There's like a lot of, it seems like for a lot of you, like your heart and your throat are connecting right now. And that's actually why they're listening to you in many ways. It seems like you represent that, like you are in the process of going through like a vulnerable kind of sharing my truth. And a lot of your people are being inspired by that. And them too, it's like a connection between the heart and the throat, which is really beautiful. And it seems like many of you have a message of your own. But also in addition to that, in your personal life, really thinking about speaking your truth, speaking from your heart, like that's really what is is calling you right now. That speaking from your truth and your heart is going to give you more than you could imagine. It's almost like if you think that you're trying to make things happen or you're trying to do things or force things to happen, I see that almost that's a hard way to get something very easy done, which is going to like easily be done by speaking your truth and sharing your heart. So you don't have to like push your way through, but you actually open up those channels and a lot will come your way. You'll be very surprised. And I know that sometimes speaking your truth and connecting to your heart can feel harder than like doing the things on your to-do list. But my sense is like there's 10 things on the to-do list and you only really need to do one and add in speaking from your heart and the rest of the 9 come together. The next thing I was getting when I was in meditation, I was feeling a lot in my stomach and I was like, okay, there's a lot of like gut issues here, which makes sense because I know you speak to some of that. But there's many like scientific reasons why the gut issue is happening. There's a lot of medical issues as well, but there's always an energetic explanation. And I was getting that a lot of you guys were very sensitive kids, like very sensitive children and almost living in a harsh world. And that could be just society, but it also could be a little bit of like a harsh home or a harsh school. And that a lot of that harshness like has affected your stomach in big ways. So the gut is trying to repair itself. Keep doing whatever you're doing, the supplements, all the things that you're doing. But in addition to that, it looks like there's this need for reparenting. So it's a very balanced reparenting. It feels like I'm going to balance out being like, yes, resilient and telling my child to like do hard things, but also very compassionate because you are capable of so much. Like everybody listening is like very much like a high achiever and like somebody that like really has like I wrote down like you're made for big things. Like you have something very big in the world to do. But now it's like that. And the gut, if you guys know, it's the solar plexus, which is like our center for our power, our self-esteem. And it looks like the reparenting and kind of bringing in some positive messaging mixed with compassion is really what is needed right now. And it's going to heal the gut in a really substantial way. And a lot of this is happening because you're made for something bigger, but like a push energy is not really going to get you there. It's a mix between like resilience, like knowing you're capable, but compassion. So it's a very balanced mother. It's like the mother that's like, my girl has this, but at the same time, she's tired. I'm going to take care of her. So it's that very loving mother that, you know, we wish we would all have. And the third message I was getting was actually about money, which is random, but I kind of checked in a few times. I was like, really? But yeah, so it feels like you guys are like to keep following these nudges. Like some of you are either going to stay in what you're doing or you're kind of investing in something new. And the message is like, this is going to pay off. Like the path that you are on, it feels a bit of an investment. So there might be like sweat equity where almost like, I'm going to do this job for 10 years, or I am going to leave a job and do something for 3 years and not make money, but it's ultimately going to make money. So it feels like you're kind of in an investment period. So if you are not making like the money you'd like to make right now, think more long-term. Like you may not be making the kind of money you want right now, but it's because like you're making a very sustainable like platform to stand on in order for you to make more long-term money. So have more of a long-term view than a short-term view. Like I know it's hard to not have the money you want every month, but it feels like you're making something more sustainable that is going to, and it's very smart. Like it might even be like investing. It feels like you're gonna rig the system. So like keep going. Just don't get caught up in like, I should have this amount of money right now. Really just make sure you're making something sustainable for where you're going. And that's what I got.
Wow. I mean, beautiful. And I think everyone listening is going to resonate because I feel a strong connection with the audience and I feel like I know them. I really resonated with the second point with the gut health and parenting and having compassion and resilience at the same time. That's like my whole focus right now because I have a really hard time doing both. It's almost like a gray area. And I'm such an extreme black and white type of person that having like being strong and resilient and compassionate is challenging for me.
It's very intuitive, you know, it's like kind of having to be it's having to know when is the right time for what, because it's so hard. Like some days you're tired and the answer might be take a nap. And some days you're tired and the answer may be you got a little bit more in you. Yeah. So it's hard to like know when to bring that out. Yeah. But that's where I think that intuitive part comes in, that you can learn to like feel into each moment rather than having these like very strict rules, but trusting that you can be more fluid.
Yeah. How do we tap into our intuition? Like, how do we get in touch with ourselves and know what the right thing to do is?
Yeah. So everybody listening is already intuitive. It's just kind of like having a magic wand and just throwing it around. But at some point, like you want to be able to direct it. So everybody has it. It's just kind of figuring out how it works for you. So the first thing is all of us get our intuition in different ways. And I think that we all have like our own language. So we have to figure that out. Some of them, do you know what yours are? Like some people feel, some people say when they get downloads, that means that like the information just kind of came to me. Some people hear and some people actually see. So some people are like, so weird. I just got this vision of me, whatever, on a stage or something. So do you think you have any of those?
I think mine's more of a feel.
Okay.
Personally.
Majority of people are feelers. We've done a bunch of like testing and getting that. But so most people are feelers, but ultimately everybody has everything. We just kind of want to lean into whatever is showing itself first. For feelers are a little difficult because you're like taking in everybody's stuff. Yeah. And that's, again, the gut stuff is because a lot of times feelers are absorbing everything and then putting it into their gut. So for a feeler, what you guys want to do is first, if you like feel the feeling within you. So for example, when I was meditating, I felt my stomach. And typically I'll be like, oh, I have a stomach ache. Or maybe I'd be like, oh, I'm nervous. But no, I'm like, actually, that's not mine. That's coming from what I'm actually doing right now. I'm feeling into the audience. So as a feeler, you almost have to realize that like most of the things that you're feeling are actually not yours and that they are some sort of message. There's some sort of information in the feeling. So you want to translate that feeling. So if that stomach ache had something to say, what would it be saying? And sometimes the stomach ache has something to say to you, like it's something that you are going through. So really focusing on any areas of your body that are feeling something and just seeing if it has something to say. So almost like letting the body talk to you. So a lot of intuition is like translating the information. Then simple ways is like when Mari and I are talking, like there might be something that she says that really stands out to you, that almost like the volume goes up. Like maybe she says 5 sentences, but there's like these 3 words that really stick out. That is your intuition. It's like a sensitivity that like we need to be paying attention to this. Like kind of how you said, like I gave you 3 and you're like, oh, the second one, I really resonate with that. Yeah. And that is you kind of something heightened and you understand that is for you. So everything is energy. And really what we're doing with intuition is we're reading the energy of things. So, and I personally like to have dedicated intuition time because I think, of course, in a perfect world, we'd love to be like walking down the street or like in the middle of a crisis and be able to get the right intuitive information. But we really have to spend some quiet time to like start developing that intuition to later be able to do it in the day-to-day life. So if you're struggling with a decision, rather than trying to force yourself to get the decision in the middle of your workday, you might want to be like, okay, tonight for 30 minutes, after I move my body, I'm going to sit down with a notebook and I'm really just going to sit and center myself and see what's coming through. Yeah. So real easy practice is getting a notebook and a pen, closing your eyes. You can place your hands on your heart and just center into your body, like feel yourself there. And then you present whatever question you're asking, but say, if I wasn't judging myself, if I was unattached to the response, what would be true here? So when you add those filters to your questions, you're less likely to control them. And then see how it falls into your body. Like, are you feeling it? Do you hear something? Do you see something? And then go straight to the notebook and write it down. Because basically like the information is trying to come into us, but our minds are going to want to filter it, especially those of us who are intelligent and we're professionals and all those things. We're going to want to filter the information, but it's really just it's a form of self-judgment and a form of like like criticism. And what we want to do is like not judge what's coming through and drop it on the paper. And then once it's on the paper, you can like decipher the message a little more.
If you guys remember, I had Todd Anderson on the show, who is a sleep expert, and he makes tools that help you have the best sleep of your life. His brand is called Dream Recovery. It's science-backed solutions to help you feel your best each morning. I'm sure you guys have heard of mouth taping by now. It is having dramatic results on people's sleep. They're sleeping so much deeper. Plus, it's transforming everyone's facial structure, which I think is insane. Nose breathing is such a healthier way to sleep. They have a new Dream Tape Plus that combines the benefits of mouth tape with a skincare routine. Clinically backed anti-aging ingredients are infused into the tape, such as collagen, biotin, vitamin D, and vitamin B. Sleep is the foundation of health, and there is truly nothing better than waking up and feeling refreshed and ready to attack the day. You guys can use code PAL for 20% off your order at dreamrecovery.io. That is code PAL for 20% off your order at dreamrecovery.io. Currently shifting my wardrobe from summer to fall. It's always fun, but also a challenge. I have found that Quince offers timeless and high quality items I adore, assuring that my wardrobe stays fresh and I don't blow out my budget. For example, cashmere sweaters from $50, pants for every occasion, washable silk tops, and so much more. The best part is that all Quince items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. By partnering directly with top factories, Quince cuts the cost of the middleman and passes the savings on to us. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes, which I love. They have the cutest cardigans on the website right now. I absolutely love the Mongolian cashmere oversized boyfriend cardigan sweater. They have a really cute faded denim color that I love and I will be wearing all fall. Make switching seasons a breeze with Quince's high quality closet essentials. Go to quince.com/pow for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/pow to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/pow. You know, I think of, like, even just to bring up a personal example, there's been someone in my life who was so important to me my whole life, and we haven't spoken in a while, and I've been trying to decide, do I want to reach out to this person or not? And I think a lot of like societal norms make me feel guilty around it and feel like I have to. But when I really sit and I get in touch with myself, it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
You know, so I think we're all so dissociated all day. We're on the phone, we're distracting, we're filling a void to avoid thinking of those painful thoughts. But really sitting and getting still and quiet is how you decipher the true intuition, I feel like.
And I think you brought up like a great point, right? Like nothing is black or white, right? So like for me, let's say we have the same friend. For me, the answer might be reach out to her. Like that may be like what my soul needs. And maybe my soul's like, reach out to her, work it out, because like that's my current path and my current lesson. But for you, the most aligned answer could be no. And I think that is really, to me, the definition of intuition, like understanding that we're all on different journeys. And maybe I am no longer talking to my mom and you are, but we are very much, and their moms are very similar, but we're very much on the same path. And and I think the best intuition is just like the one you just described. You were like, you know, typically I would say, yeah, call her back. Like societal pressure, like, you know, I'm such a bitch for not calling this person. But when I really listen to myself, the answer is no. And it kind of surprises you. Like you were expecting a yes. Like you were expecting I should call her back. But when you sit with it, you realize it's a no. And to me, that is like the greatest gift.
It is. And then you can then take that feeling. I mean, I personally took it to my therapist and I was like, why do I feel this way? You know, what's happening? So to kind of decipher that later on is interesting as well. But listening to the no is crucial. How can we use our intuition to find our true purpose? I think that's a question I see a lot from the audience. They don't know what their true purpose in life is. And I'd love to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, from reading so many people, and I would say that's like why I kind of got into the work, because I was super passionate about people having purpose. I grew up actually everybody in my family is a doctor, so the joke's on me. And my older brother like knew at a very young age that he was going to be a doctor, and I was always like, like what's my thing? Like I don't know what my thing is. I really understood it at a young age that it was a career thing. So I spent a lot of like my 20s like trying to figure out like what I was meant to do. So I got really interested in this topic. And then when I learned the spiritual aspect, I was like, oh, this is like so cool. Like you can actually get some answers. So the first thing I would say is that your purpose is greater than your work. So that's like one thing to say. I think a lot of us just think that it's connected. And for many of us, it is. But your purpose is a spiritual purpose. So it really is like, why did your soul come here? Like your soul came here to do something. And there are many aspects to the purpose. Like some of them are relational, like I'm meant to raise this child, or I'm meant to, be with this person or work this way. So your purpose may have nothing to do with work. And it's okay to be, first of all, open to that. I think it's like you like give yourself permission to be open to what that is. And then the second thing is, what I've learned is that our purpose is very much connected to our talents and also our desires. So what you desire in life has you might feel very guilty sometimes for what you desire. And there are some people, for example, that I've read that I'm like, oh, you're like really meant to be wealthy. And they were like, I knew it. Like I've had this problem. I'm like been trying to make money. And that seems like so not spiritual, right? But no, like that is like part of why they are here. So your desires, kind of what you desire, has a lot to do with your purpose. So to keep following those desires and to do your best to release the ego and the guilt from any desire, and the desire will become more true. So desires, again, like those filter questions I just gave you guys, your desire, you can also be like, if I didn't judge myself, what is the purity of my desire, so that you can feel a little bit better about like going after whatever it is that you're being called to. So there's answers in your desires, like kind of what you're being called to, what you're being magnetized to, what you feel like you're trying to figure out. That's your purpose is in there. And then your purpose is also in your talents. And I feel like, so it's gifts and talents. So basically, we're all born with like different gifts, but the thing is, because they're so natural to us, like we don't always realize that they're gifts. And also a lot of gifts are underdeveloped. So like when you start to take a gift and develop it, then it becomes a talent. So, like a kid that might be singing, but he's like a really bad singer. But if he loves it enough and it calls his attention enough, it's like meant to be like more of a talent. So he just has to develop it. So a lot of our purpose is in those things, but I think there's so many of us walking around with underdeveloped gifts. So like we don't think anything of them. So a gift, the way it's going to show itself, it's like, it's going to be something you're interested in, that you might even be like embarrassed about. It could also be something that's like causing a problem in your life. For example, you're too much, or you're like very sensitive. Sometimes even the things that are like shadows almost in our lives are our gifts. So we want to move into them and develop them. And a gift is going to call your attention enough to like keep following it. So anything that like, for example, like what I'm doing, it just called my attention enough. There was a lot of other things I could have done, but I kept following it. It's like almost I was obsessed with it. And that is how it created like a real talent. But the way that I read now, I was by no means that talented when I first started. I grew into the talent. I developed the talent. And then from there, you like find why you're actually here. So if the best example I can give you is like, I don't know if you guys watched the movie The Little Mermaid growing up, the animated one. And she does that thing with the fork. Like she has a fork and she thinks it's to brush her hair, right? Yeah. And later on, obviously, you figure out that the fork is like not to brush your hair. And I feel like many of us exist that way. Like many of us think like we are being used as hairbrushes when we're actually like meant to be used as forks. And what I mean by that is like, you might think you're like mediocre, but a lot of it is because you're like not really being used accurately. Like you're actually meant to like stab a piece of steak, but as a brush, you're a horrible, like that looks like a horrible brush.
Yeah.
So really finding finding it in your talents, developing them enough. And from there, like you will really find like what you are here for.
I love that so much. I think that's so important. And I love the fact that you said it doesn't have to be career. I think that was a huge realization for me. I am someone who's very career driven, and I definitely attached my identity to my business for a long time. But I think my true purpose in life is far beyond that. I think I'm slowly like chipping away at it, you know? Like I think this podcast has been a huge piece of purpose for me in terms of sharing and connecting. I don't think I'm done yet. I think having children is huge for me. I think writing is something that's been prevalent for me since I was little. But I think it's an underdeveloped skill because I haven't done it in so long, you know? And when you were speaking about, you know, thinking you're mediocre, I spent many, many years of my life thinking I was mediocre and thinking I wasn't meant for anything great or impactful. And I think I was being a hairbrush when I meant to be a fork, you know? Like I think I didn't know what my true potential was back then, and it took hitting a really low point for me to find that. So it's just interesting that you say that because I can relate.
And that's when you started the fitness journey.
Yeah.
And it caught your attention enough.
Yeah.
Like it was like this thing that it just grabbed your attention. You were willing to follow it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like part of the journey. And I think that's the other thing about purpose. I think we often think that it's this one thing, but there's seasons to it. Like that was very much on purpose, right? Like that was exactly what you were supposed to do at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's, I'm sure, changing a bit.
That's why it's funny to me when people reference my story as like this weight loss journey, because to me it was so much more than that. Like it was a full overhaul of my identity and who I thought I was. So I love that. For anyone listening who maybe feels unsure of the path that they're on, how do we know when it's time to give up, pivot, or start over?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And again, it's like not a black and white answer, but because, you know, as you know, like we can't just say like, oh, the path should be easy, it should flow, because no, there's a lot of things that we have to do that are going to be hard, that are still very much on our path. But I would say that when you're on your path, everything that's there is like calling your attention enough to continue to follow it, if that makes sense. When you're off your path, you are just not inspired by the things that you're following. So there should be, even if it's like you're annoyed, you know, like sometimes like the things you love, you're like really mad at, but there's some sort of fire or some sort of passion behind like what you're following. That is a sign more that we are on our path. And if you are feeling less fire about something you used to have a lot of fire for, which does happen, like you were like, but I used to love this person, or I used to love this work, definitely seeing how you can be more honest about those roads, and sometimes like the fire will light up again. So to be off path also, I mean, there's a little bit of, I think that when you're off path, a lot of things are not working out. I feel like you've tried all the things and you're kind of hitting your head up against the wall and it's not fully working out. And it's not so much that you're supposed to pivot to the next path, but it's more that you're supposed to do like what Mari was saying, that you are letting go, that you kind of just drop to your knees a little bit and you're like, okay, cool, I'm not in charge. I get it. Got it, guys. I'm not in charge of any of this. So like, show me what, and sometimes it's asking better questions, right? So it's like, what is the highest path for me? Like, what is going to be in my highest and greatest good? What is the most expansive path for me? Because there may be something better. Like, believe it or not, like you might be like, no, like living in New York City, working this is like the best thing. And you're working that, and you're like, you know, I'm not passionate, I'm not happy, or it's not working out. And that may be a moment to tell you that there's actually something greater, you know? And it does require a lot of trust and going into the unknown. So asking better questions, guys, like asking more elevated questions so that you can, because the path is more elevated than like kind of what the human sees or what the human can understand. So just raise like the vibration of your question to get the answer. I didn't realize that our water is called path. So we're talking about the path today.
We're talking about the path today. We are. It's, you know, I'm thinking of someone in my life who is not super passionate about their career right now and kind of not sure what the next step is. But I almost feel like having that realization in itself is the first step, which is fantastic. And then also like, I think with social media and seeing, you know, a lot of people become successful at a young age, it can be confusing because I think a lot of us don't figure out our true purpose until a little bit later sometimes. And I think that's okay. Like, I don't even think I know what I'm meant to do yet. You know, I have an idea, but I think I'm just getting started in a way. So I think it's important to think in terms of like long term as well when we're all so short term at the moment. How do we best envision like our highest self? How do we tap into that version of ourselves?
Yeah, that's such a, I mean, there's so many seasons. I'm actually learning to garden. I grew up in Miami in the city and now I'm living in the country and I feel so dumb, like trying to figure out. I'm just like, this should be like a life lesson. Like I should know how to grow these things. And I really felt like stupid for even wanting to do this at this, you know, elder age of 41. And I was like learning about roses and I started studying this woman who found her passion for roses at like 62. And she brought all these like roses that had gotten lost. They had left America and like ended up in Britain, like in London somewhere. And she like brought them back. And she had this whole, you know, she died like in her 80s, but she had this whole body of work about these like roses that she learned in her 60s. And I was like, okay, Nikki, well, there are many, and I think so. I think we live many lives. You know, I think we live like many different seasons, and to be, you know, to be patient with that and really ask like, what is the most important thing for me to learn right now? Like, what is like, you know, being asked of me? So the higher self, to kind of like live into the higher self. So your highest self is really like so if we are all part of God, basically the higher self is like you as that part of God, basically. It's like a part of you that can imagine like seeing the path much higher from you. Like you are on the road, but your higher self is like a bird. Mm-hmm. So it can see, you know, 10 years out, it can see 10 years in the past, but like all you can really see is a little bit in front of you and a little bit in back of you. So the higher self really serves as a guide. I think also working with the future self is helpful too. So like your future self is the version of you that has the things that you're working towards. So that's a good one too. Like almost when you're trying to figure out, okay, I have a feeling I know what my path is, or I feel like I'm being called to something, you can visit the future self. So like you just kind of close your eyes and you see yourself in the future. Just imagine it. Don't like overthink it. Don't worry about it. And kind of almost like rock backwards. Like, so if there's a version of me that maybe has the career and has the relationship, what did I do to get there? And believe it or not, like when you close your eyes and imagine that, you will get answers from there and you start walking there. So the whole trick is, if I was that version of me today, so let's say, let's see, what do I have? What don't I have today? So I don't know. Let's say there's a version of me that is, I don't know, has a bestseller, let's say, like a New York Times bestseller book, let's say. And I am not that today. So today I do not have that. But if I was going to make a choice today as the version of me that had that, what choice would I make? And that choice would probably be very different. Maybe I was like, I'm going to come onto Mari's show as if I am already that. And maybe I would speak very differently than I would speak as the version that like is in lack and does not have that. So the big trick with like kind of feeling into the higher versions of ourselves or the future version is trying to be in the present and almost predict the way that version would hold itself and carry itself and bring that to my present. So who, you know, what would I do today if I was in love? Like what would I do today? Let's say you're like looking for a partner. and you're like, how would I act today if I was like completely in love and happy? You'd probably be like, well, I'd get off these freaking dating apps. But no, like you would probably hold a certain energy of security and just kind of like, I'm lovable, this is easy, this is simple. And as you hold that kind of energy, you will bring something new into your life, if that makes sense. So we're trying to kind of create our current reality as the future would. Like we're trying to act the way that the future would work today, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess putting it in my world, I would, me a couple months ago before I had spoken to you, I was in the depths of feeling like I couldn't have a baby. And I showed up every day as someone who was struggling and, trying to pick apart my routine. What am I doing wrong? Showing up every day thinking like this isn't going to happen for me. And I think the difference between me now and then is I show up knowing that I will have a baby and knowing that's in my future. And it just makes me act differently. Like I feel like I'm more present in my life. I'm more excited for it. You just show up differently when you really believe it,
That makes me want to cry, Mari. It's so beautiful because it is. It's the difference between when, we hear all these like spiritual people say like, you're in lack or whatever, but that is like lack when you're like, you're showing up every day as a person that does not have such and such. I don't have the numbers on Instagram that I want or whatever. I don't have the relationship. I don't have the baby. So you keep like perpetuating that life.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel good, like whether you want to believe in this stuff or not, it just doesn't feel good to wake up that day. So then when because there's, I don't know how deep we want to go into it, but there's many different like paths in life. So even when people pick up the future, they're like kind of reading a path. And we can connect to that path or we can be off that path. So it's like I can see a path where I have a child and I want to be connected to that path because right now I'm on this path where I have no child. And that's a different vibration like in the quantum field. And I'm trying to leap into the one that actually has the child. So we can actually like connect to different vibrations, if that makes sense. And I think you might overthink this and be like, well, maybe I'm not meant to have a child. But if you're feeling small and lack, that is not the right path. Like there is no God in the universe that wants you to feel small. Like you are ever expanding creator. So you're supposed to feel expansive and big and all that. So it's okay for you to like connect to the things that you want. But you have to ask yourself, like, am I lacking that? Am I wishing I had that? Or am I actually connected to that path? And many of us sometimes are not connected to the path. We're more on the path that's like watching the other path and wishing we were on that path, but we're disconnected from it, which sounds like what you're explaining. Yeah. And then you connect. So trying to like really click in to that path that is for you.
Yeah. And it feels like a much deeper connection. Instead of this desperation, it feels like that's what I'm meant to do and it will happen.
Yes, exactly. And the universe is going to bring me helpful people. I'm going to get clues along the way. Like now I'm like, okay, I'm on a fun scavenger hunt.
Yes.
And every day, like something random, a little bit of piece of information. Somebody tells me to go see this doctor. Somebody tells me to let go of this. And I see my life more as a scavenger hunt and like a fun one rather than, one that's doom and gloom and like lack.
Such a great point. Like even since talking to you last, I found out I have super high levels of H. pylori in my gut. And now I'm solving that issue. And it's something that would have been passed along to a baby, which is not what I want. I've been referred to a new doctor now who's much better for fertility. Everything feels like it's falling into
this
place.
Baby is like so high vibe. She's like coming in like crystallized. Like
she's like, please remove your H. pylori and then I'll come. Exactly. Please go to this doctor.
Exactly.
In terms of the spirit baby, I actually had a lot of questions from the gals listening. Someone said, and this made me sad, but I wanted to ask. She said, what do miscarriages mean and do those babies come back?
Yeah. I get that all the time, guys. And I've seen miscarriages, abortions. Also, I've seen, death of children, all very hard things. So, okay. So there's a lot of different responses to this one. So miscarriages are a few things. sometimes like the spirit baby is like trying to make contact and having to like wake up the parent. Sometimes like the parent, their setup might not be, ready or whatever. And they're just like kind of coming in. So every miscarriage is a bit of a spiritual awakening, like for better or for worse, it really does like cause this awakening in you. So they're trying to make contact. Spirit babies are so funny. Sometimes they are trying to come in with the right astrology, believe it or not. They'll be like, no, that's like not the right timing for me. Like I'm actually looking, because the astrology really affects like what, it almost brings them the tools they need to live into their purpose. So they do that. Also, there's a lot of miscarriages because babies are not getting like the body form that they really want to come into. So I'll explain that to you guys in another way. So I had a client, very close, like actually a close friend of mine, who was pregnant, a little bit of an older pregnancy. And the baby was showing that it was going to be Down syndrome. And they were like, they felt really horrible, but they were like, we just don't think this is our life path. And decided to do a medical abortion of this Down syndrome baby, which was obviously super hard. And I was like, that baby's going to come back. That baby just did not want that body. And I explained like the baby, like to the T. I was like, oh, he's like this and he's like that. And this is his personality. Sure enough, like 9 months later or so, she gets pregnant. Baby becomes full term, healthy baby boy. And like about a year into the baby being living, she's like, you explained my baby to the T. Like that is who he is. And it's true. He needed an able body. And some people, some souls don't want an able body, right? Like some souls are like, yes, bring me in that way. My purpose is to have those difficulties in this lifetime. But that baby needed an able body and he came back. So actually I just got a call from my girlfriend who's been trying for like 6 years now. And she's like about to give, and she's like, this stupid baby, like has been coming back and forth, many miscarriages but like they're coming for the timing, for the right able body often, or some sort of spiritual awakening. So there's a mix of answers there.
I think that's really helpful for people listening. I think miscarriages are so common and so painful to deal with, and infertility in itself, it's so consuming, like far beyond what I could have imagined. And I'm lucky I have friends, I think of Celeste, she has a beautiful baby girl and she has really guided me through this time. And she definitely is a believer of spirit babies and them finding the right astrology. And I laughed the other day because one of my friends was like, you don't want to have the wrong baby. Yeah. And I'm like, you're right.
So true.
I don't want to force it.
Exactly.
And have the wrong baby. So let me wait for her to be ready.
Exactly. And and they even like will switch their genders sometimes before they come. Like my third child is a boy. And I was like convinced, and all these psychics had told me that I was having a girl. And I was like just convinced I was having a girl. We have the reveal party and like, I bite into that cupcake and sure enough, it's blue. And I just start crying like a little brat, and because I really thought I was going to have a girl. And now that another thing to know is like, now that he is born, he's my third child. But as a mom, you're always like, oh, this child's coming in for me. But my son, Ethan, was born a boy for his dad. He was born a boy for his brother. Like he was born a boy for his sister who didn't want to have another sister, who didn't want to have another girl. Like she wants to be. So like he has a greater purpose than just me and what I want.
Yeah.
Like he has so many other relationships than just me. So like we also have to respect that a little bit with the spirit babies. Like they have their own purpose. And that's part of our training as parents, that we're not birthing like little versions of ourselves. We are really like making a home for this child that has its own purpose. And the babies that are being born now, like our alpha babies, we call them the children of the sun, because they are like changing the planet. I have goosebumps. They're guiding us parents to change so much. And millennials are like perfect. Millennial and Gen Z are like perfect parents for these kids that are coming in. And in a weird way, it's like we like work for them in so many ways. Yeah. So we have to respect kind of how, what their path and what their purpose is. I would say that one person that's asking, Mari, this is a little off, but I feel like she needs to get a past life regression. So to find somebody that it looks like there's something in your pregnancy experience from other lifetimes, which I know can sound a little out there, but that might be helpful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I wanted to ask you also about ancestry. I know when you and I spoke, we spoke about my ancestors. Is that a good place to look if we are searching for our deeper purpose or looking to find, who we really are?
Yeah. So ancestry, and I would say a lot of just young adults right now, many of you guys listening are kind of like what the ancestry has been praying for, if that makes sense. There is just like, there are so many people that are changing the lineage in such a big way, even physically, like almost like, like epigenetics, right? Like if you like turn off a gene that's been in the family for a long time and you don't pass it on anymore, like there's, like you guys are doing so much of that just with your bodies, but also with like the way that you are and the way you're, raising kids and all that. So that is a big purpose as well. There's a lot of people that have that purpose. And often these people will feel their ancestors or their past loved ones be around them, almost like cheering them on to do what it is that they're like currently doing. So that is very meaningful. If you find yourself doing like very deep work with a therapist, like that's probably part of, like ancestry is probably part of your lineage, because people that are doing very deep therapy work, it's like you're changing the root system and changing what you came from and understanding it. So it's a very important job. And it's like, if that's all you do this lifetime, it's very important, because we also have to look at our purpose as not just like me, Nikki's purpose, but more like me, the purpose within the lineage. Like I am part of one long thread, and what I accomplish like changes everybody after me.
Yeah.
But there's also some days that I'm like, this lineage shit is so hard. I'll tell my kids, I'll be like, you guys can pick up that trash. Like I can't figure everything out in our lineage. Like if you guys have some baggage, like I'll pass, like, cause you're not gonna be able to do all of it. But it seems like a lot of us are doing very heavy lifting that hasn't been seen in like many generations.
Yeah.
So you'll feel like your loved ones around you, if you feel your past loved ones show up a lot, that's part of your calling. If you find yourself thinking about like the family dynamics and relationships a lot, that's also a sign that it's like in your purpose.
I love that. And I think being the person to break the lineage can also be scary, and you feel a little bit like the black sheep of the family sometimes. So tapping into that bigger purpose and looking at our ancestry and kind of tapping into that's really, really helpful.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that because even if, let's say you had a grandmother who was like super strict and religious, right, in real life, but she passes, and knowing that the soul is quite different than the human. So believe it or not, the human grandmother might have been very stuck in like patriarchy stuff, or had like a certain brain that didn't allow certain things, or just a certain upbringing. But she works much better as a spirit guide, like as somebody guiding you rather than the physical body. So sometimes we get confused by that. Like just because the person passes doesn't mean they're exactly the same way that they were in real life. The soul is free. Like the soul is no longer in a body. So it has more more understanding. I had this one client recently who is into like very metaphysical stuff. And she had a close relationship with her mom. But her mom was, like Hispanic, Catholic, and would kindly listen to her daughter, but like thought it was a bunch of bullshit. And her mother unexpectedly passes away. And about 6 months later, we start having a reading, and her mother comes through, and I start like sharing her mother. And I didn't know this about her. And I was like, your mother is saying that everything you said is true. Like she's like, it's so crazy. The past loved one was so interesting. She was like, everything is real. Everything is true. And then my client starts like cracking up. She's like, she never believed like my beliefs, like my spiritual beliefs. But now that she's outside of the body and she has a higher perspective, she was like coming back to tell her daughter to like continue, believing those things, because there was a lot of truth to what she was understanding. So when our loved ones pass, they leave the body and they have greater understanding. So sometimes like you might think your grandmother wants you to, I don't know, marry us within your culture, let's say. But actually when she passes, she might be like, hey, permission to marry outside of the culture because like that's what we need in the lineage. So we have to be open to kind of how they show up as a soul rather than like who they were on earth. And they want us to move the lineage forward.
Yeah. For anyone listening who has experienced loss or they're grieving, what are some of the common ways our guardian angels would come through to us?
Yeah. I know. Loss is like, you know, we live in this world where we do feel very separate, but of course, like all those, nothing is ever lost. Like energy cannot be destroyed. So our people are still there. But you will get a lot of signs. I'm looking straight at the book. There's a butterfly is a big one. So if you're wondering where your loved one is and if they're okay, butterflies, dreams, they'll show up in our dreams a lot. Just the universe is always talking to you. So as long as like you're kind of walking around being open to the story, so almost like being open to the metaphors in life, like knowing that there are these magical ways in which the universe is talking to us. A lot of it is through nature. A lot of it sometimes is like through friends that tell us something, and just really kind of believing that they're, you know, that these are messages and connections that are, you know, greater than just like being human.
Yeah. I also want to ask you about soulmates and I guess like romantic and friendship. How do we know when someone is our person?
I know. If I could like, I could be like an activist for soulmates because like that word has been so like misinterpreted. So, and I was one of the first people to like misunderstand it. I'm such a like hopeless romantic. So I loved the concept of soulmates. But soulmates, the true definition is it's a soul that has lived with you before, like in another lifetime. So believe it, and soulmates are not all like rainbows and butterflies. You can actually have a boss who you hate, who's your soulmate. Like, right? Because the idea is that souls like we come to Earth for school. Like, so I might be like, okay, Mari, like you and I, we're going to go to Earth and we're going to play this game. Like I'm going to be your sister and I'm going to be like super bratty, but I'm also going to like make you wake up because, you know, blah, blah, blah. So we like play these roles, and sometimes like the role is not a favorable role, but that person could be a very close soulmate to you as well. So that's something, you know, obviously don't take any abuse or anything like that. But it's interesting how sometimes the people that trigger us are like people that are really trying to help us expand as well. So soulmates, and then also understanding that soulmates don't necessarily mean that we're supposed to be together forever. Soulmates we work together to get ourselves to the next, the next level. And sometimes when you get to the next level, you may lose that soulmate. Mm-hmm. So sometimes like a friendship might end because you guys, what it's going to look like is like you grew apart or you don't get along anymore or something. But it could also be like the reason they came into your life, like that moment is over and it's complete. And like it's sad, but often there's a completion to those relationships. And if we can see it that way, and instead of feeling like I'm a bad person and I'm not friends with this person anymore, but actually seeing like, okay, great, I passed, second grade, and now I'm moving on to third grade, and not everybody can come with me to third grade.
Yeah.
So that's the hardest. That's the hardest part. And then there are some romantic relationships that will stay with you like the eternity. But those soulmates have to be heavily connected with evolving. So like it has to be two souls that are willing, that are on the same path and are willing to like evolve together. So those are like the people that we stay with for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, soulmates is a hard thing because like when you have one and it doesn't last, it's very sad. But signs that you're with a soulmate is that, again, you recognize the person, like for some reason, like you know the person on a deeper level than time has given you. You are on a similar journey. Like there's something with like the path that's bringing you guys together. And that it's kind of like a person that every time, like that this person is connected to your growth, whether bad or good, but this person's connected to your growth.
Yeah.
So even if it's like a triggering type of way, but you are growing as long as you're around this person, is like a sign that they're a soulmate.
So for example, me and Fee met 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but we feel like we've known each other forever, like to the point where we feel like we're related.
Yeah.
What is that?
Yeah.
Like we were together in a previous life.
That's soulmate stuff. That's like, and that's also very kind of like purpose stuff. Like we're coming to make something happen together, and we know that it's coming, it's better together than separate, you know? So it seems like you guys are working towards the same force.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that you're like doing it together.
I would agree. That's wild to think about, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then when I think of me and Greg, I think of like two people who have evolved so much together. Like we've both grown in crazy ways.
Right. Yeah, like you're good growth partners.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, those are like the best. I would say if anybody has not found their person yet, but is like trying to manifest their person, that's a really good intention to set, is like, I am looking for somebody who will grow with me, because that will give some longevity to the relationship, because it's hard when you're with somebody that doesn't want to grow with you.
Nikki, thank you so much for coming on the show. I feel really inspired right now. Every time I talk to you, I just feel like I can breathe for a second. For anyone listening who would like to work with you, read the book, can you give us all the information? Where can they find you? Where can they find the book?
Oh, Mari, thanks for having me. And you guys, it's really an honor to be with you and with your community. I can just like feel the really beautiful work that you guys are all going to do. And we talk so much about purpose because like you all have very big purposes in the world. So it's been an honor speaking to you. I have a podcast called Soul-Led Living. So if you guys are already listening to podcasts, I do a lot of messages, which are super fun on that podcast. I still do readings. If you just go to nikkinovo.com, I have a wait list, so you can put your name on that. And I'm on Instagram, and you can also, I have a new book called Soul-Led Living that is on Amazon. So any of the places, just come say hi.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Pursuit of Wellness podcast. To support this show, please rate and review and share with your loved ones. If you want to be reminded of new episodes, click the subscribe button on your preferred podcast or video player. You can sign up for my newsletter to receive my favorites at marilewellyn.com. It will be linked in the show notes. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson, Fiona Attucks, and Kelly Kyle. This show is edited by Mike Fry, and our video is recorded by Luis Vargas. You can also watch the full video of each episode on our YouTube channel at Mari Fitness. Love you, Power Girls and Power Boys. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team.